Hey everybody, welcome to the Stellar Highway. My name is Motormind and I will be your guide. Today we're taking a look at Coda. This is a fantasy comic. I had kind of been wondering what was out there in terms of like sword and sorcery and sort of like magic and stuff like that. Because there's usually a book out there that's kind of caters to the like Lord of the Rings fans or, Tolkien fans, people that are playing Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder and stuff like that. So I kind of poked around and heard about this Coda, which I guess just came out on May the 2nd. So I poked around and it sounded interesting, it looked interesting, and it reminded me of a movie that was on cable throughout my childhood, a movie called Wizards. I guess it was made in like 1977, and it was this weird like post-apocalyptic magic meets like I don't know. It was just like, as a kid, I just couldn't even comprehend what it was about. But yeah, if you're familiar with Wizards, this kind of like gave me that vibe. And, it kind of made me more interested in checking it out. So I was excited when I found this. Yeah, I mean, it's a strange beast. And I think that's working as intended. It's tough to describe this, in just a few words. So I'm just going to let the promotional people and the author speak for themselves. I actually found a ad for this, kind of a promotion for this, in the back of another Boom Studios comic book. This is published by Boom Studios, which I had never read anything from before this, but I was really impressed by the quality. I mean, the actual, paper stock that's used and everything. This is like a very high quality comic book. They made a great first impression. But I digress. Back to the synopsis of the book. The tagline is High Fantasy Low Lives. And it says basically this: the Dark Lord won. Magic has been nearly wiped out from a once wondrous fantasy world. Now the former bard Hum seeks a way to save the soul of his wife, with nothing but a foul-tempered mutant unicorn and his wits to protect him. Along the way, he'll be drawn into a brutal power struggle that will forever decide who rules the weird wasteland. And this is written by Simon Spurrier, and the artist is Matthias Baraga. I probably didn't say that right. Sorry, Matthias. Good work, though. Excellent art in this book. It definitely has its own style. Again, everything about this book is its own beast. It really has sort of a unique identity. But now, this is a tough book to narrate, a tough book to review. I will say this, as I flip through it here, I mean, this is like very gorgeous visuals. I mean, this definitely will make a impression on your eyeballs if it doesn't make an impression on your brain. It's very verbose. There's the main character Hum, he has a lot to say, and most of it's said kind of, through these letters that he's writing to his missing wife, or, his captured wife. There's a lot of humor. There's a lot to unpack here. I mean, this is not a comic book that you're going to finish in like 8 minutes. I had to read this thing twice. It took me, 15 minutes each time. So, I mean, in terms of the quality of the book and stuff, I mean, you're definitely getting your money worth. Basically, it seems like he lives as a scavenger out in this post-apocalyptic fantasy landscape, which I like the idea of what if the Dark Lord won? What if the Sauron or Sauron succeeded in destroying Middle Earth. This is kind of like a look at that, and it does make it feel even more desperate and weird because they don't have technology. It's not like most post-apocalyptic stories. But yeah, Hum seems like kind of a despicable guy. And in the letters he writes to his wife, he's always extolling her good qualities and her good virtues. I mean, you kind of get the feeling that, as a couple, as, two parts of a whole, that she was kind of the moral compass and stuff. But, you kind of have to admire that he's like doing everything he can to like save her, because they're in kind of like, it seems like the whole world is just in a bad spot. They say there's very little magic left, or no new magic being brought into the world. So they just have like these existing trinkets, things that are left over. It's mentioned that Hum has a ring that's pretty powerful, but they don't really get into that. They also do spend some time talking about his prosthetic leg, which he uses to hide stuff in. Yeah, you don't get the impression that he's like a warrior or anything. He's just like a smart dude. He's clever, and he's, good at talking. So sort of that's, he plays to his strengths. He does swing a staff and kind of wield a, brandish a knife, but, you can tell he's not really like a, not really like a fighting sort. The fighting seems to be taken care of by his Pentacorn, 5-horned unicorn, he calls Nag. This thing is absolutely vicious. It's cool as hell. I really like this. I like the idea that he has this like vicious mount. But yeah, Nag seems to take care of like the heavy lifting in terms of like fighting and stuff. He's sort of scavenging inside the bones of this dragon, and the dragon's like immortal, so it's like still talking, and it's like pleading for him to like, get the rats out of him and things like that. Again, there's a pretty heavy emphasis on humor. I mean, not all of it lands for me. I mean, this feels like a very British type humor. And I don't know anything about the author. I don't know if Simon Spurrier is actually a British guy or not, but you get the feeling that if he's not, he's really into like British culture and stuff like that. As for me, all I know is the Edgar Wright stuff, like Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, and so I don't really know much about like British television or anything, so I'll leave that to Simon. So basically, there's a scene here where he's chased by more bandits after he gets the treasure out of the dragon. And it sort of introduces this, they call it Acker, I think, is what they're calling it. But it's basically like this green liquid, used like a drug. It's ingested. They inject it into their mounts so they can take chase after Nag. There's sort of this cool little horse chase here, and it's great. I mean, they really, this is like comparable, to like, I reviewed Death or Glory, which is sort of like a car chase, sort of heist comic, but they do a great job in this book as well of, conveying a sense of motion. It's I mean, artistically and art-wise, I mean, this must have taken just incredible amount of time to draw and lay out, not to mention the crazy amount of dialogue, that Hum does these letters to his wife. And but basically, Hum ends up at this place called Ridgetown. Ridgetown is unique because it has a giant sort of cannon on top of it. It's difficult to see in this picture, but this is sort of like, I don't know, the remnants of a castle, or it seems to be like telescoping. It's pretty, again, the designs and the weirdness of this book are just, it's great. It's definitely one of its strengths. I mean, it's a unique beast, like I said. But basically, Hum ends up, doing like a little quest for Ridgetown. There's a sort of a sabotage. There's these brigands that are trying to sabotage the ammo for the big cannon on top of the castle. He sort of like tries to stop them, but he's not successful. But the reveal for the ammo, the reason they need the ammo, the reason they need the cannon, is because there is a band of there's these bandits, and they control the last giant. The giant's name is Thundergog, apparently. But basically, in this wonderful art here, in this wonderful page, You can kind of see the shadow of the giant off in the distance. The mayor says, come the full moon, they'll be here and they'll attack the city and lay waste. They needed that ammo for the cannon. They sort of implore him to help. And they say, we don't have much metal workers, we don't have much iron, but we do have an abundance of magic, and that gets Hum's interest. So he sort of signs up to help the town because he wants to get at their supply of magic. So what follows is he basically ends up in the woods with one of the town paladins, and he ends up in the woods with there's a caravan, and the caravan turns out to be an old friend of his, and it's sort of this weird, grotesque, not good-looking mermaid. I don't know how to describe her. She looks cool. This is all very cool. She has sort of a bathtub on a cart. But basically, it turns out to be an old friend of his. She tries to hit him with some spiked wine and knock him out so she can rob him, but he's too clever for that. And in the end, he does end up making a deal with her and getting some iron for the town. And in turn, the mermaid, I think her name is Merc, she agrees to make something that will help him save his wife. So he's all about betraying the town because it helps him kind of further his goal of saving his wife. He goes back to town. They have a big old celebration. He's got his eyes on the prize. He's thinking of very little but the reserves of magic. And he slips everyone some of the spiked wine that Merc tried to serve him, and puts everybody to sleep so he can get at the supply of acre, the magic green liquid. And I will save the rest for you to discover. This does have a great hook at the end that will kind of want you coming back. That'll get you to come back and see what the next issue has. And I think I'll be checking this out. It's not exactly what I was looking for in a fantasy, because this has very modern humor and sensibilities, kind of. It doesn't really transport you to the classic fantasy that Tolkien style, but it is unique and it's interesting stuff. So I'll definitely be checking a little bit more of this out. This was a fun ride. I mean, it's very verbose. There's a lot of text. There's a lot of hum just going on and on and on. But it doesn't really hurt the experience. I like it. This is a recommend. I mean, if you're interested in fantasy in the least, this is a recommend. I mean, if nothing else, you've got this amazing artwork, which is definitely easy to enjoy, and like the quality product. So yeah, this one's a recommend. So let me know, did you check out Coda? Will you be checking out Coda? Does this sort of thing interest you? Do you like comics that branch out into fantasy, or do you want to just keep it strictly like tights and superheroes? I do like to check out some of the other stuff, that on the other edges of the comic book industry, just, because I like the variety. I like to see what can be done with the medium, because they have, it's limitless, and that's one of the great things about comic books, is like anything is possible as long as you have a skilled storyteller and a skilled artist, or one of the two. As much as well as I do that you sometimes don't have both, or you have one and not the other. So let me know what you thought of Coda in the comments below. Ring the bell, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. I appreciate you joining me tonight on the Stellar Highway, and I will see you next time.